A to Z Sports Nashville. Good morning. Welcoming everyone into the chat live with us right now. Got an exciting show for you all today as we dive deeper into Tennessee Titans training camp. I am Ryan Roberts, joined, of course, by Easton Freeze, Titans reporter from A to Z Sports. Please excuse a little bit of the background noise. If you can't tell, Easton is live and on site, ready for the next day of practice. And hey, gets a little bit loud when football season is upon us. We have an exciting one for you guys. If you have been following training camp, some of your favorite talking heads around the Tennessee Titans space, you know that yesterday was a little bit of a up and down day for rookie quarterback Cam Ward. A little bit of turnover conversations that have been happening both yesterday and this morning. So we want to give you all a lot of the context and talk about mostly should you be worrying, how much you should be worrying, and if there is ultimately a breaking point to this conversation. So we're going to get everybody involved, get Easton's perspective on a couple of the turnover miscues from yesterday. But Easton, live on site, appreciate you for hopping in. Obviously, as always, first and foremost, how is everything going, and how excited are you for this show this fine morning?
Ryan, what's up? I'm fantastic. Good to see you this morning. It is early here at St. Thomas Sports Park, but it is plenty loud because right behind the camera, I am looking out at the field from the third level, I believe SeatGeek Terrace here at St. Thomas Sports Park. Practice is underway, stretching, we got some throwing, we got some football things going on down there as they get ready to spend the next hour and a half or so working in the pads as they were yesterday. Excited to talk about what we saw yesterday and talk about what we need to see from Cam Ward and company bouncing back today. Again, excuse the noise. It is what it is. We're very lively here at 8:04 a.m. Central Standard Time, and it's getting me going at least. It's waking me up, so I'm excited to do the show with you this morning.
Yeah, man. So we're welcoming everybody into the show. Make sure everybody is locked in and ready. It's going to be a little bit more of an abbreviated show because, as Easton has kind of already indicated, we also have JT Runke, who is on set as well, ready for the Titans training camp. So we're going to have a lot more information for you all over the next 24 hours, what Easton and JT saw on site, offensively, defensively, and continuing that conversation. Before we do though, folks, welcoming you into the A to Z Sports live on a Wednesday morning, every weekday morning at 8 Central Time, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Links tweeted out segment by segment on our Twitter feed at A to Z Sports. Follow us live on Instagram and TikTok for more Titans coverage as well. You can also leave a 5-star Google review for A to Z Sports. We got to thank our sponsors, of course, for the show each and every morning, helping us out constantly. We also start with Wilson County Hyundai, which makes Wilson County Hyundai a part of your new car buying process. Let's talk this morning, East. Let's get it. In Lebanon,
no, keep going. You're killing it. You're killing it.
Oh my gosh. In Wilson County Hyundai.com. Also our friends over at the Bone and Joint Institute, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedics and sports medicine, boneandjointtn.org. Now that we can kind of get into the conversation here, Easton, we have some conversation around the Cam Ward interceptions and the offensive struggles just in general. I know that Tajay Spears talked a little bit about some turnover of his own, putting the ball in the ground a couple of days ago. So we'll talk about all of that. And we also have Coach Callahan, who commented on it after practice, and some useful conversation and some useful context. But I want to start you out by just kind of talking about Cam Ward yesterday, the turnovers that you saw, and I want you to add context though, because here's the victim that we fall into as a general public sometimes this time of year. You're going to see a tweet, Cam Ward throws an interception, and that is factually what happened, but we also lose context of, hey, was there a miscommunication? Was there a bad route? Was it a good read, an inaccurate ball? Was it a bad read? Was he trying to be a little bit arrogant with his ball placement? All those things are typically missed. What did you see from Cam Ward yesterday and the conversation around the turnover issues?
Yeah, let's start with this, Ryan. Cam Ward had a really bad day yesterday. It was a bad day at the office. Like I'm seeing and hearing a lot of coping going on with that on different shows and articles being written, and the context is key. And the context is key. We're going to talk about what went wrong for Cam Ward. But it was a bad day, and that's okay. All right, it's okay that he had a bad day. If he didn't have a bad day, it would be kind of odd and maybe even a little bit concerning, because if you're not failing in training camp, then it's, I think, very fair to wonder whether or not you're actually trying things, whether or not you're actually pushing yourself to test your boundaries. And so Cam Ward yesterday, speaking of testing your boundaries, he was testing the boundary of the field quite a bit. Been a middle of the field operator really his entire career. It's what he excelled at in Miami. But so far in training camp and in OTAs this year, that's where he has lived. It's been his bread and butter. Yesterday was a little bit of a different MO for him. I noticed him pushing the ball to the boundaries a decent amount, playing around with some things there. And I don't know if that was the primary reason why. It just was not his most accurate day. I believe he went 6 of 17 passing in 11-on-11 drills, as charted by my friend Nick Suss over at the Tennessean. So I'd take his word for it on that. That's certainly what it felt like. It was a difficult day. The context required is that, number one, he's a rookie, and it's the first day of padded practice. And I don't know if, Ryan, you have kind of picked up on this, but Austin and I have talked about this a ton on the morning shows. Up until basically yesterday, Cam Ward hadn't really given me a reason to walk away from a practice with a serious reason to doubt him, right? With some kind of tangible concern for the guy. He'd been kind of perfect up until this point. Not perfect in passing and not making perfect decisions up and down practice, not without his warts and his learning curves and growing pains, but it's all been pretty smooth sailing for him, both on and off the field up until yesterday, which I think is a testament to his work ethic, his mindset, the way that, as we've talked about a million times, he does not get knocked off of his spot mentally or physically. He's somebody that is steady Eddie, cool, smooth sailing all the time. And that's why I wasn't really concerned about yesterday. I did find it notable that it was the first time that he really struggled in a day of practice, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he bounces back today. If I had any guess, knowing Cam Ward, it's going to be relatively well, because he's a guy that in college loved to make his own messes and then clean up his own messes. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a little bit of that today out there at practice. The last little bit of context here that we'll talk about in more detail is that you need to know what the stated goals of each practice are, and you need to know what the situations these guys are being put in practice are, particularly the time on the clock and the down and distance that they're trying to rep, right? It's situational practice, and that's what the Titans have been doing a ton of so far. Situational, primarily third down practices early on. This first week and change, these first 4, now 5 practices we've watched have been primarily third down reps for the offense in team drills, because as one of the folks with the organization told me on the side yesterday, it's really hard and we really need it, and Cam really needs it. And if you don't do the hard stuff, you're never going to be good. And if you don't fail at the hard stuff, you're never going to figure out how to succeed at the hard stuff. And so that's what they are working on now. I do think that, and this person told me, we're going to get into some more standard operating neutral situations for these guys in coming practices. And that's probably going to open up the offense a little bit. But for the time being, Ryan, it's like 5 consecutive reps for Cam Ward, where it's 3rd and 5, and he's going against a Denard Wilson defense, which is what I want to talk more about. A defense that is one of the most unique when it comes to the exotic blitz looks they're going to show to you. Denard is doing everything in his power to put Cam in a mental blender out here. And yesterday, I think it worked a handful of times. And he is trying to get this defense in a place where there are a number of different players who can do a number of different things. And you, as the quarterback, don't quite know who is coming from when and from where on any given snap. And that's something that, talking to somebody with the coaching staff yesterday, there's an internal belief, at least, that nobody besides Todd Bowles in the NFL is really doing it from a schematic standpoint quite like Denard Wilson is doing it. And I'm not saying he's at the best, not like that. I'm saying the style of play that he is trying to run here on defense, the exotic blitz-heavy looks that he's wanting to throw, the way that he's wanting to use a pretty uniform defensive line in terms of the size. We know that they have leaned heavy at edge, and the guys in the middle have slimmed down a little bit so that they can be more of a positionless basketball front, move guys around. And then we've got versatile guys at the spine, right? You've got Cody Barton and James Williams, former safeties playing linebacker, who are read and react guys. They are decent in coverage as well because they have that coverage ability. And then at safety, you've got guys like Amani Hooker, who's not afraid to come down into the box. You've got guys like Kevin Winston, who we know is somebody that is a physical tackler that you want coming downhill. So all of that combines into a defense that I think is unique in these third down situations and makes it really difficult for Cam Ward, and it certainly was difficult for him yesterday.
One, I think that's the context that we need to have a deeper conversation with, right? Because again, and we're going to get a little deeper into this after the ad break here in a second, but there is a lot of missed conversation in this, right? Because the minute a quarterback does something wrong, Easton, we hyper focus on the quarterback. No one ever talks about, hey, maybe the defense just made a really good play, right? Maybe they were disguising some things. Maybe a safety or a defensive back or a linebacker, whoever, made an unbelievable read. Like, all those things are very possible. And then also, and I want to have a deeper conversation with you about this, not every interception is created equal. Not every turnover is created equal. There is so much miscontext to some of these conversations. And yes, on one breath, we can say Cam Ward was bad yesterday. And on the other side, we can say, but maybe there's reason for X throw that he made that just didn't turn out in the offense's favor, and the reason that it ended up being a turnover. So let's hear from Coach Callahan, though, first. We're going to hear from Coach Callahan to continue this conversation, then we'll dig a little bit deeper into the Cam Ward Turnover Tuesday, as we kind of have coined it.
Just the daily updates and who wins and who loses and who performs well and who doesn't, I think gets in the way sometimes of what we're really after, which is we're trying to develop every day and get better. And we want guys to take some risks with how they play, and quarterbacks in particular make throws or try throws that you maybe not going to do in a game, but see how it feels and see where if you have that one in your bag or not, But that's with a lot of players is you want guys to play fast. You don't want them to fear failure. And we'll coach and correct any mistakes that come up. And the idea is that you don't make them again and you just keep pushing forward. But you want guys to not have a governor on and not have to be worried about making mistakes, because that generally tends to be a pretty poor mindset to try to perform in.
Right. Sort of 1 week evaluation, Cam, what have you liked, and what would you like to see a little bit better?
I've really liked how much command he has over the offense at this moment. We're installing a lot of information again. It comes at you quick. In the first 7 days of training camp are heavy installation. There's a lot of new information every single day. He's done a really nice job of handling that. I'm starting to see the growth in his command at the line of scrimmage in terms of he made a couple nice checks yesterday. He made a couple really good protection adjustments yesterday. So those things are really encouraging to see. And the operation is getting faster, which is the next key, is just how much faster can we operate at the line of scrimmage. And then the physical part's been really, really good. There's no change in that part. I mean, he's playing on time. He's making good throws. And then there's mistakes interwoven with all of that, and we just keep coaching.
Ryan, I want to get your thoughts on that and hear from our friends in the chat with our question here in just a minute. So if you can get that queued up for us. But first, let me tell everybody about our friends over at Bart Durham Injury Law. A crash can change your life forever, and help is only a click away at bartdurham.com. Your big truck wreck is our fight for justice. A crash can change your life forever. Bart Durham Injury Law is here to help, and only a phone call away. You can reach Bart Durham at anytime, 24/7. Get your legal questions answered. 615-242-9000. You deserve to be paid. Wait a minute. No. This is a classic Easton miscue because I'm working off my phone. I'm reading the wrong ad read. This is what happens when we sign deals with people at Bart Durham and Barton Drury. My deepest apologies to our friends over at Barton Drury. Bart Durham, also fantastic, a former sponsor of the show, hopefully a future sponsor of the show. You got a little free shout there. A little free shout never hurt anybody. But let me tell you about our friends at Barton Drury, who I actually need to tell you about this morning. Customized solutions for all of your insurance needs. I knew that felt wrong. I was like, wait a minute, I haven't done this ad read in so long. But
the fact that it is, like you said, it's Barton at the beginning, I was like, is he doing the right one for a second? Even I was
frankly, it's too many Barts around here, but we've got the right Bart now. Customized solutions for all your insurance needs. BartonDrury.com. They are truly one-stop shop for both your personal and business insurance needs. Austin and Zach felt their insurance buying process from Barton Drury back when they got insurance for those of us here at A to Z Sports went fantastic. They loved the team. They loved the help that they got. Number of different options and plans, high responsiveness. The experience with the service team was excellent, and the level of expertise was top notch. They sell employee benefits, 401k planning, life insurance, workers' comp, liability, auto property, umbrella, and surety bonds. They are local, and we strive to provide excellent service, but also they want to take their time to make sure everyone understands their insurance policies, which is what is most important to me, because insurance is complicated, and you don't have time to figure that out. They have time to figure it out for you. Check them out over at bartondrury.com.
Make sure, folks, before we get into the next segment here and talk a little bit more about the turnover woes that we saw on Tuesday, make sure that you are liking and subscribe to the show live on YouTube. If you're watching live on Twitch, or on Facebook. You can also hit the like button there. Hit that little share button in the bottom of the screen on Facebook to make sure it gets out onto your feed, and share with the favorite Tennessee Titan fan in your life. Make sure that you spread the word that we are talking about a little bit of training camp conversation, and specifically Cam Ward this morning.
All right, Ryan, let's go ahead and ask the question in the comments here.
It's been asked, man. It's been asked.
It's been asked.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll let you preface what this question is, line it
Yeah.
up, and then I'll have you check the chat for us.
Yeah. So the question that we wanted to pose to everyone to get the chat involved this morning is, what is the turning point to where throwing too many training camps interceptions is now concerning? When you heard Coach Callahan talk about it, you're talking about processing being faster, right? Like his mind is starting to tick up a little bit quicker. And that typically happens this time of year during training camp, right? Defenses are throwing a lot of things at Cam Ward, different blitz looks, different coverage variations. You're rolling to different coverage post snap. You're seeing different things both pre and post. So you are trying to get a quarterback to think faster and put him in a lot of different scenarios. You mentioned, Easton, like some situational stuff like third down, red zone, like all these different types of things that you're going to throw at the quarterback to make him have to think a tick sooner. So early training camp interceptions is not a rarity to Cam Ward. Like, this is not a specific thing to him. This happens to everyone, and you want it to happen to everyone. So not to let the cat out of the bag, but I'm not overly worried about this conversation. But the reason that we're asking at what point does it become concerning, because day one, day two of training camp, a young quarterback throwing interceptions, not concerning. But the deeper we get into training camp, the conversation does tilt a little bit, right? So at what point does it become a concerning thing? Is it after the first preseason game, after the second preseason game, by the end of camp? So when do those bad habits become concerning for those in the chats is the question.
Yep, so let's go to the chat, Ryan. When are folks looking to see Cam Ward clean up his act?
So we had Bustin' Diamond, who said, to quote the great Allen Iverson, we talking about practice. We sure are, because that's all we can talk about right now is practice. So we will. We had Cam Ward get used to the pads. I'm not really sure what that means. So Jonathan just said that, and see how he reacts to welcome to the NFL sack. So I think that is interrelated, though, to what we were just talking about, Easton. It's early, right? So I don't think it's overly concerning as of today. It's never concerning in camp, Rooney says. So whether it is day one or the final day of camp, he is not concerned about it at all. Curtis says, when PK starts telling us it's an interception every other play like last year. So you can attest to that. I don't know how troubling the interceptions were last year in camp.
It was not. That's a gross overstatement of how, I mean, training camp was, we were not all going into the season panicked about Will Levis. That panic came shortly thereafter.
Yeah. Sweet. Ira Hoshi said 0. It just proves our defense is sick. I think that's an interesting part of the conversation. There's multi-layers to this conversation. Yes.
Don't you love the glass half full element of training camp, where as long as you're just practicing against your own team, you can see in practice whatever you want to see in practice. You know,
yes.
Nothing is ever. It's like we were talking in the media room the other day about the Titans radio team, who does a good job calling the Saturday practice in the stadium over the intercom, and they were kind of live commenting on what was happening, and we were like, it must be so nice for them to be able to have something exciting to say about every play, no matter what. It's either a fantastic defensive effort by so-and-so, or it's a great passing catch by so-and-so. You never have to worry about what went wrong because it's all your team. So, every year, I think back mostly to the offseason last year or was it 2 years ago? When Arden Key, I think it was 2 years ago, when Arden Key was just tearing up the offensive line in practice. And we're like, man, this new cat, fantastic. This guy rules. Turns out the offensive line just really, really sucked. And Arden Key, I'm not saying he's a bad player, but he'd come off the field and we'd be like, how many sacks today, Arden? And he'd say, about 9, which was accurate. And turns out that I think that season he may not have gotten even close to 9 total sacks. So
yeah,
them's the breaks. You never quite know how much it is on either side of the coin. And then you have things like, not to get too off the beaten path, but you have what you expect to be winners and losers, like this Titans offensive line should be better than this Titans defensive line. I don't think anybody disagrees with that, right? And
Yep.
so with them in pads,
at least
now,
on the edges, right? Absolutely.
Right, exactly. But I would say, and yes, Jeffrey Simmons is going to get his. Devondre Sweat's going to get his. The interior is they're going to crush the pocket a couple times. But on the whole, this offensive line should be winning. And so it's one of those things where it's kind of a lose-lose for me as a viewer, because if the offensive line is kicking butt at practice every day, it's like, well, yes, of course, they should be. I don't know how good they are, but they're better than this bad defensive line. And if they're losing, it's like, because I'm not willing.
Going off. Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
right. Those more willing to cope would be like, well, this defensive line's better than we think, and okay, we'll see. That can be your take. I'm gonna probably push back on that until I see him out there on the field, and so that's kind of the funny element of this. And the good news, Ryan, I say all of that to say, usually we have to sit here and wonder about that very question for a month. But the Titans about to take off on their 2-week road trip for some joint practices in Tampa Bay, some joint practices in Atlanta. We're going to get to see a handful of these style practices against other teams that, Atlanta, not exactly a world beater necessarily, but Tampa Bay, a very good team. And I think both will provide a pretty interesting, a constant in the equation, right? It's not a variable any longer that you have to worry about going against your own team. We get to see them go against some other guys, and that'll be interesting to see whether Cam Ward looks the same here as he does in Tampa Bay and in Atlanta.
Yep, no, I agree completely. And just kind of rolling through a couple more comments before we get a little deeper in the conversation. Sean King just said, not concerning, rather now than in games. Try things now so you won't in real game situations. We also had R.I.R. Hoshi who said, throw them picks, get them out in the way in practice. It's a good thing. Bork Borgenton said, the last week of training camp, you want to start looking cleaner at that point. So I think most people have kind of on the similar wavelength as far as right now is not overly concerning, right? And we'll have a deeper conversation. I want to have a deeper conversation with you, Easton. There is a huge difference, because I talked about it before we started this segment, that there is a huge variation of turnovers and what leads to turnovers. For me, Cam Ward having a bad read or being inaccurate is a lot more worrisome than Cam Ward just probably trying to fit the ball into a window that maybe he shouldn't do, right? Because there is a really interesting relationship between Cam Ward being a little bit of a gunslinger and a little bit of a guy that's going to take some chances, and you being okay with that, right? Like, it's the Josh Allen thing from a couple years ago where Josh Allen threw a ton of interceptions, and it's like, guys, but you want him to keep taking those chances, because what Josh Allen can do, hitting some incredibly tight windows and some very difficult throws, that's what makes him special. And it's the same thing about Cam Ward. What makes him special is that he can make some throws that nobody else in this roster obviously can make. Nobody in Tennessee Titans uniform over the last few years can make, and they wouldn't even think about attempting it. So I do think that there's a arm arrogance conversation around Cam Ward, but I mean, I don't want him to dull that. If he starts to get away from that, then he is not why you drafted him number 1 overall. You drafted him number 1 overall because he can do some things that you just haven't been able to do in an offense because of the arm talent and the arrogance that he has. But I think that's one of his biggest strengths as a football player.
Yeah, you're exactly right. The good has to outweigh the bad. That's what matters. The quantity of the bad is less important to me, and it sounds like to you, than the ratio of good to bad. And so when you have a situation like last year where, well, Will Levis is doing the bad things, the good news is he's also not doing the good things. That's when you get yourself in trouble right there. You got to have a guy that if you're going to be a little sloppy, you're going to be a little bit of a gunslinger, you constantly outweigh the bad. And like I mentioned earlier, I need to go find this stat. I heard it. Who did I hear? I heard it from Brett Coleman on his Titans Breakdown, a fantastic YouTube channel. Brett Coleman does a great job, and he talked about how in college, or at least in Miami, I think final year in Miami, he was 61% of the time the Miami offense score is their scoring drive percentage. 61%. I phrased that as poorly as possible.
They were the number 1 scoring offense in college football last year. So yeah, they scored a lot.
Correct. And I think the next closest was like 54 or something. So they were crushing everybody. But more interestingly is on drives immediately following a turnover, they scored 70% of the time. And those numbers might be 1 or 2 percentage points off because I'm remembering it from 2 days ago. But that was roughly the deal, is that they actually scored at a much higher clip on drives immediately following a turnover than they did in neutral in a neutral setting. And that number far exceeded anybody else in college football. All of that is to say, as I mentioned at the top of the show, Cam Ward, a guy that is prone to making messes. But the difference from, take last year in Will Levis to this year in Cam Ward is that he is somebody that has demonstrated that he makes messes, but he is somebody that has the wherewithal, the mental fortuity to, that's not a word, fortuitousness, he's
Fortitude.
mentally fortitude, that's the word. He's mentally fortified enough to go back out there and not skip a beat, not miss his mark a second time, learn from the mistake, not make the same mistake again, which is what, every coach will tell you. It's fine to make mistakes, just don't repeat them. Yep. And so my answer to the roundabout answer here is that, I'm old enough to remember CJ Stroud, watching him in the preseason and everybody being like, whoo, this guy can't play football. So there's not really a point until September that I'm going to get truly concerned, that word concerned, about Cam Ward. It won't be until they're in Denver. And even then, listen, that Denver defense, I respect them about as much as I respect any unit in the entire league. So there's a chance that even then it could look really bad and I won't be all that concerned because I'm like, well, what are you going to do? These guys are incredible. They're going to make Patrick Mahomes look like this 2 times a year, which is probably true. But it won't be until at least then that I get concerned about Cam Ward. I will find it interesting. I will take mental note of it. And it will be points on my graph of, well, something to watch, right? Let's see if this changes once we turn over to live bullets being fired in September. But I just can't in good conscience after seeing many, many times. Remember when Jamar Chase couldn't catch footballs?
That's the one I was about to say. Okay, man. I feel like in my mind right now. Like Jamar Chase could not catch during his rookie training camp, right?
Oh, and then all of a sudden, that first take news cycle was feeding families in the middle of August because Jamar Chase, the 4th overall pick, could not catch footballs and actually stunk. And now he's, the reigning Triple Crown winner of the NFL. So it's just weird. Things are weird in training camp. They're weird in the preseason. I'm not saying they don't matter. I'm just saying they're not everything. And they should be things that I think interest is the right word. They interest me. I take note of them. I take stock of them to return back to once we get a comparison of live bullets flying. And if it's a lot of the same, we can say, well, that makes sense considering what we saw. And if it's something changed, we say, well, that gives us some information going forward that, maybe what this guy does in practice is fundamentally different from what he's trying to do on a football field when the clock is actually rolling and the score actually matters. And so I look forward to some more bad Cam Ward days. I want there to be some more bad Cam Ward days. I do not want there to be more bad days than good days, but I do want days where he is clearly trying new things, not doing the same monotonous tasks over and over and over, because that serves nobody. And it's lazy, right? You hear the inspirational posters hung up in every NFL building. It's like, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? That's what these guys are practicing each and every day, is finding comfort in the discomfort of pushing yourself, training every single day. So I want to get your answer, and then I think we have some super chats to attend to, Ryan, but we do have some bills to pay, and I do have the correct ad read up here on my screen to read to you. Not going to make that mistake twice. Tell you about our friends over at the Bone and Joint Institute, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedics and sports medicine, boneandjointtn.org. Whenever you get hurt in life, you have to know who to trust. The Bone and Joint Institute, located in Franklin, with over a dozen specialists who can help you through any type of injury. They have a state-of-the-art rehab facility on campus to help you recover. Bone and Joint can do everything under one roof for your convenience. Clinic, testing, imaging, surgery, rehab. Schedule an appointment today. Go to boneandjointtn.org.
Yeah, we did have a super chat. We should probably pop that up real quick before I forget about it. We had King VC who just said, lock in, like the show. Well,
what up,
Ethan,
King?
You know who was locked in yesterday? On the Cam Ward side, we're going to talk about the negatives. But who was locked in to create turnovers? It was the defense, right? I watched Jeff Simmons do an interview yesterday, and I would love to hear about just some guys that popped to you yesterday during practice, and we'll kind of get out of there on that note. But Jeff Simmons talked about in his press conference afterwards, or his media availability afterwards, he talked about the first thing they asked about improvements in this defense. And the first thing he mentioned was, we want to be more disruptive and create turnovers. And I thought that message matched so much of what we saw yesterday, because then I'm listening to Tajay Spears talk to the media, and he's talking about how he put the ball on the ground a couple of times yesterday as well. So yes, Cam Ward's going to get a lot of the headlines for the turnover conversations, but this is quick. This is easily, obviously, a thing that the defense is trying to improve upon. And it wasn't just Cam yesterday. There were turnovers on this offensive side of the football in general. So we'd love to hear about the defense and just some other people maybe that popped out to you in day one of training camp.
Sure, and I like this exercise because, as a seasoned sports writer, sports personality yourself, this time of year, you got to pace yourself. You got to keep your powder dry in week 1 and week 2. If you talk about everything there is to talk about, then you're going to be twiddling your thumbs and sweating nervously in the corner of your room in front of your computer, trying to think of things to say for the next month. So there are a number of storylines we haven't yet touched on that I do find very interesting, that I'm actively monitoring out here. But I don't want to go too long without at least mentioning some of these guys that are standing out for some good and some bad reasons that we'll probably talk about in more detail, and I'll write about in more detail here in the coming days. The first guys I want to mention are both of the linebackers. We've not talked at all much on this show. I don't think at all on the morning show really about Cody Barton, who everyone knows is going to be your guy, your linebacker one. And then James Williams, who I am very close to. Ryan, I was talking to my buddy Nick Suss on the sideline yesterday, and we were doing an exercise that we spur of the moment named "If Only 1 Week of Padless Practice is All That Mattered." And so we were just like deciding on things that we would change our mind on if the 3 padless practices we saw is all we needed to see. And that told the whole story. And one of those things was, guys, James Williams is your starting linebacker too. Like, he won the job. It's not a rotation. It's not a competition. Somehow this guy won before they even put pads on, which is really impressive for a linebacker. Now, I'm not going to say that because I know better than to, on July 30th, before August, declare a guy a winner of an open competition. But unlike the way that Vrabel kind of operated, and Vrabel would tell us this at the podium, he'd say, well, don't get too hung up on this guy being the guy running with the ones this week, because next week it'll be a different guy. Next week it'll be a different guy, and they would rotate him in and out. Callahan has not really showed that MO. Maybe that's something that he's doing here, and we're yet to see it, but we don't really have an example of that, and he certainly hasn't said that. And James Williams just continues to be the guy. So I don't really know what else there is to see besides just more, I guess, as time marches on and we get closer to the actual thing, that will confirm what is your starting linebacker too. He's looked the part. It's not just like he's out there. It's, he's out there and he's playing good football. I'm not surprised that they like him a lot in that role, because he does have that. Cedric Gray was billed this way, that like, this is a guy that's a good cover linebacker too. And in college he was, right? But James Williams was a safety, right? In college, like 2 years ago, he was playing safety at the University of Miami. So this guy knows how to cover. He knows how to move in space. He is crazy long. He is so easy to identify on the field. I think the 3 players on this team, the most easy to just immediately identify without looking at their number or their face or anything, just like looking at their general silhouette on the field, are James Williams, because he is just the tallest guy in the middle of the defense, 6'5", always. Femi Oladejo, who is my pick for like the carved out of stone Greek god build of this team. I don't know if he's going to be good at football this year, but holy, he is like bodybuilder rocked up, very impressive looking build. And then Devondre Sweat, for obvious reasons. He's just the biggest person out there. So those guys are easy to point out. And James has been really fantastic. Cody Barton has been really fantastic. The guy that has had Cam Ward's number for the most part so far. So those linebackers are the first ones that come to mind. Would you like me to just keep rolling through?
Yeah, man, just keep rolling through, and then we'll get you out of here.
Let's see. What else? Yesterday, watching I'll end on this one. The offensive line we saw, the offensive and defensive line we saw yesterday for the first time doing their one-on-one drills. Wrote about this over at A2ZSports.com if you want to read more in detail. But seeing these guys, and listen, one-on-ones for linemen, an imperfect exercise, right? We understand that good trench play is just as much about teamwork and chemistry and the coordinated dance that is, especially on the offensive line, that is blocking scheme. But one-on-ones does give you, I think, a good glimpse. At first, I think it kind of gives you a decent general gauge of weight classes, right? Like who can hang with who for the most part. I think it also gives you a good look at a guy's athleticism, their movement skills, and their general anchor. These are all things that matter a lot and go into the evaluation of these players. And watching, they showed us a bunch of that yesterday. It's 50 some odd reps. Peter Skoronski is, I mean, I put significant money on him just being the best pass protector on this team. Like, he's nails. He is really, really good. I think this is the season that he shuts some people up that are still whining about the fact that the Titans took a guard as high as they did in the draft in 2022, 3 years ago. I think that this is a breakout. Yeah, 23. I think this is a breakout year for him. And I think that he's somebody that, you know, we talked about how he finished last season as one of the best pass protecting linemen in the entire league by charting. I think that he kind of just picks up where he left off, and I think that he's really fantastic in that role. And this is the year that he becomes that Pro Bowl, all-pro conversation kind of guy with a better situation around him. The other guy that stood out on the offensive line, also not surprising, is J.C. Latham. I think that he is your second best pass protector pretty clearly. The thing that I was concerned about with him because of his body composition change is, hey, this guy's superpower has been up until this point his impenetrable anchor. And I don't mean like it's a strength or he's really, really good at it. I mean, it's a like nuclear fortified 17 inches of solid titanium. You can't go through this guy. You can beat him, but it's not by going through him. He has arguably the best anchor in the entire league out of all of the tackles, but he's a lot smaller now. So does that change? Does this attempt to be healthier on the joints and be better in space impact his ability to anchor? And he did not look any less strong yesterday going against exclusively the best rushers on this team. Now, the best rushers on this team, we understand, are not close to the best rushers in the NFL. So we'll see if that changes up against somebody even as big as like Myles Garrett. Maybe Myles Garrett can bowl him down this year. We'll see. But so far, I've been impressed with those two guys tremendously. I think the Titans, I can say for the first time in, well, a very, very long time, I think they have two young studs, 22 and 24 years old on this offensive line, both cost-controlled, both high first-round picks, and both acting like it.
Well, when's the last time you were able to kind of boast about a Titans offensive line just in general, right? Like your optimism.
2020?
Right, the Taylor Lewan days of the offensive line play for the Tennessee Titans. Like it's been a couple years, man. Like it's
2,000 yards, 2,000 yard season for Derrick Henry, and even then, those lines were hyper fixated on run blocking. Like they weren't bad pass protecting offensive lines. Don't get me wrong, but they weren't. That was not their MO. I think this team's MO, the difference is that they will be a good run blocking team, but I think that they can be a fantastic pass protecting team. And that's fantastic news for Cam Ward.
Yeah, and I think that's a good note to wrap us up on here. Again, Easton Freeze and JT Runke are both going to be on site and are on site already for training camp for the Tennessee Titans. So over the next 24 hours, you guys are going to have a lot more updates, winners, some guys maybe that are a little still concerning. You want to see kind of an uptick in play. Make sure to stay locked in, hit that like button, and subscribe to the channel. Want to tell you all before we get out of here about WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Make Wilson County Hyundai a part of your new car buying process in Lebanon or at WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Wilson County Hyundai is the place to go for your new ride. Their team over there at Wilson County Hyundai is happy to guide you through the financing process, assisting with buying or trading in your vehicle. Forget those downtown Nashville prices. Head to Lebanon and to see our friends at WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Easton, you enjoy practice. We'll have a conversation about it very, very soon. Want to thank everybody again for joining us this fine morning. Make sure before you go to like the show, subscribe to the channel, and we will keep you updated tomorrow and tonight on more Tennessee Titans latest from training camp. See y'all.